All right, we're looking at prepositions now, lesson 4, and this will be a good study. Prepositions are very important words, and as we get into them, we'll see more of them. I'm going to read from John 14:17. We have a preposition here, and this is par. It's an abbreviated form, contracted form of para. Para. And so par, humin, mene, kai, en, humin, estai. And so par, humin is with you or along with you. He abides. Mene is he abides. That's from meno. Kai is and, in, humin, in you or with you shall be. And so in could be, this is two prepositions. We have para, and we have this word come into our English language as a prefix, paralegal, parametric, and so forth. This para is beside. It means beside. We'll look at this in just a moment. We have also in, and I'll highlight it in just a moment. This is the preposition in, and our English word enter, E-N-T-E-R, enter, and entrance. And these two words are derived from that word. And so it's in, it's also among. It could be among. It is my contention it should be among if it's related to a plurality of people, and it should be in if it's probably one single person. But that's a contextual problem and not a grammar problem. All right? Prepositions, and so humin is a pronoun, in you, and su is the pronoun you, and meno, and this becomes mene, he abides or it abides, and kai is an, in you, humin again, it shall be. Now this is a future tense verb, and so it shall be, it's a being verb, which we haven't gotten into yet. Our prepositions now, as we look at this, are words which denote time, place, direction, purpose, or some other abstract idea which are placed before substantive. Now substantive is anything that's a noun or acts like a noun. So participles can act like nouns, for example, and adjectives can act like nouns. So they're placed before prepositions, see preposition, and they're placed before substantive, connect them in an adjectival or adverbial sense to other words. So they can act like an adverb or an adjective. An adjective modifies a noun or something that's like a noun. And an adverb modifies action. It modifies verbs and other adverbs. Now, I, if we come down here, and I'll highlight it now, read it. I, ecclesiae, I, notice the rough breathing, in, te, asia. And so I, that's the article, feminine article, ecclesiae, the churches. And then we have I again, and there's nothing for it to modify, the adjective to modify. So really, this would read the churches, in the Asia, more literally. And so the churches, the what? The churches, so it's emphatic. The churches, which churches? The ones in Asia. And ones in the Asia would be the province of Asia, not the continent we know as Asia. So we have the preposition in here. One's in Asia. Okay? Could be among Asia or in Asia. And sometimes it's translated in than among, but it is translated among. It's found a couple of thousand times in the New Testament, that preposition is.
Brother, why is high used again after ecclesia?
Why is high used again?
Yeah.
Probably for emphasis.
Just for emphasis.
The churches, and it has to modify something, but it's elliptical, meaning it's unstated, but you have to think about it in your mind, and when you do, psychologically, it actually reinforces it, so it's emphatic. When we have to fill in the blanks ourselves, we have to think it. We have to think it in our minds, and we learn more. Of course, Jesus is the master teacher, knowing how our minds are created. But here, the scriptures, the Holy Spirit provided it, and so it's emphatic. The churches, which ones? The ones in Asia. Okay. Any questions? That's a good question. Glad you asked it. Okay. Lege, entais, synagogais. Lege, entais, synagogais. Now, lege is third person singular. Entais. Now, here's the situation. Entais would be the dative, locative, or instrumental form. Synagogais. They're the form of dative, instrumental, locative. Now, here's what will happen. There are some of the Greek people, the Greek authorities, are 5-case men because there's only 5 forms. So they treat them as 5 cases. When they do, they subdivide them. So they'll have the case of the genitive, and they'll call it the genitive case, and they'll call it the genitive of origin or source, which is the same as ablative. But I'm going to go with 8 cases subdivided. And so the genitive ablative has the same form, but they don't function the same way. Now, and they'll say, but they have the same form. Well, we have another situation. Sometimes in the neuter gender, the accusative and the nominative case have the same form. So we know they're different cases. So the role that it plays has to determine its case, not its inflection or how it's inflected. That's my argument. I think 8 cases is better to use. All right, but we're going to go with 8 cases in here. I understand. Some of your authorities, like lexicons, like most lexicons, go with 5 cases. So they'll have the nominative, genitive, dative, accusative, and vocative cases. Those will be your 5 cases with the 5 case laws. Thayer's lexicon will give 5 cases. So things that we're going to call ablative case, Thayer will say they're genitive. But if you read carefully, he'll say genitive of source or origin. So the genitive case is subdivided into genitive that we know as the genitive, which is possessive case or relationship, and the case of source or origin, which would be the ablative case. Okay. Now, prepositions originally in the older Greek were adverbs, and they were used to modify verbs, but they came to be called indicative cases in expressing their relationship. So they moved over and began to use them to modify the various cases of nouns and adjectives. So the root out of the preposition helps in understanding its syntactical meaning. A syntax is how it fits together in the sentence, or how words function together. That's what it is. The original root idea helps us to understand it, so keep that in mind. Now, the proper way to understand the prepositional phrase is first to consider the force of the case of the noun, consider what the noun means, and then to add to it the root meaning of the preposition. So you start with your noun and then go to your preposition. The combination of the 2 items will generally explain the meaning of the phrase. That's what none tells us, and that's short syntax of New Testament Greek, page 29. Now, I think that short syntax of Nunn's book is real good. He has 7 cases of none. None that only has 7 cases. So he doesn't go with 8, but he goes with 7 cases. And I have two editions of Nunn's book. I have an older edition and a later edition, 2 different editions, maybe a first edition and then a third edition or something like that. And there have been a few changes he made. But I recommend this book. I think you can find it on the internet probably as an electronic file for free. You'll hunt around and find it. Any questions? But it is, in my judgment, it's helpful. Okay. Cases with prepositions. Now, here's the situation. Prepositions don't determine the case. Don't get that backwards. Prepositions do not determine the case. The case determines which preposition is going to be used. The case determines the preposition. In English, the root of a preposition is always in the objective case. In Greek, practically all cases will be found used with prepositions. Some prepositions are used with only one case. That is ace, and so we'll come down to it right here. Ace. This preposition is found many times. It's the word translated in the King James Version unto or for remission of sins. For remission of sins, Acts 2:38. It's also translated unto remission of sins by the American Standard Version, that same verse. But it only goes with the accusative case. It doesn't go with any other cases. And this word is very important to remember. It points you towards something, but it doesn't guarantee you've gotten there. So let me digress just a moment. Using that point about ace, the word translated for, and for remission of sins, Acts 2:38, we understand that Acts 2:38 just by itself does not guarantee you that you get remission of sins at baptism. The structure of the Greek doesn't guarantee it. Put it together the rest of the New Testament, you can derive the conclusion that it does. But it tells you it's an essential ingredient to having remission of sins. You must be baptized in order to have remission of sins. So, but we'll get back to that at a later time. I wrote a treatise on that and laid it out pretty clearly. And if you want it, let me know and I'll send it to you. Okay. So it only goes, this preposition ace, epsilon iota sigma, only goes with the accusative case. Apo. The apo, the preposition apo, and is a stroke has been taken away, something has been taken from the word. And so a prefix apo in English carries that idea of coming from something. And it only goes with the ablative case. Question? I'm not hearing you, I'm sorry. Okay, all right. It only goes with the ablative case. And we'll come back, we have a chart on this a little bit, we'll come back to it. Others are used with 2 cases. For instance, meta, so we'll come down to meta. That preposition meta is used with the genitive and the accusative. Now, with the genitive case, it means with, but with the accusative case, it means after. So it changes its meaning, depending upon what case it is used with. Now, this can become a little bit confusing, but we do that in English too. And a few are used in 3 or more cases. Now, you must not use the cases indiscriminately with any preposition, because the genitive is used with meta does not mean it can be used with pros, or which takes on the accusative case. The student should learn the case and meaning of each of the cases indiscriminately. Okay? And so you must not use the case indiscriminately. So you must learn the case and meaning of each preposition with its case. Now here's the table, here's our vocabulary. We'll be looking at this. This, I believe, is very, very important. I want you to notice here, these are the most frequent prepositions in the New Testament. They occurred at least 200 to 500 times each. So let's look at them up here. We'll look at all these prepositions. Ana, ana, that's up. And again, you'll find this, get a good English dictionary, and you'll find several words with ana, A-N-A, as prefixes, and it means up somewhere in that word, in that English word, derived from this actual preposition, up.
So brother, just to understand something real quick, the ana, up is without the case, or up is with the accusative case?
It is going to be used only with the accusative case when you have it.
Okay.
It'll always be used with the accusative case, and it means up. Up to, it could be up to a certain number, or it could be used in a distributive sense of by or every. Okay. Up to a certain number. Up to 100 did this. Up to 3,000. About 3,000 souls. Something like that. Okay. So ana itself carries that idea of being up, and then it goes into its words and heightens them. It may even become a prefix that is attached to a verb. And frequently you'll have bino, that's beta, alpha, iota, nu, omega, bino, and that means to go. But anabino is to go up. So you go up. And so Jesus went up to Jerusalem. And the text of the Bible uses the words that depict going up, because Jerusalem was higher than the place where he was going from. And it was when it says they went up, they always went up in altitude. Okay. Any question? The Dead Sea, of course, is one of the lowest places on the earth. Maybe it is the lowest place. I think it is. And so when they go up from Jericho to Jerusalem, it's going up. Anabino. Right? Apo. Right? Po is from. So we have apo being from. It's only used with the ablative case. It means off or away from. And we'll have a diagram over here to show you a little bit more about how it functions. It goes, if we said he went from the city, it meant he went from the edge of the city. He left the city and was going out from it. If he'd used the 1, 2, 3, 4, the fifth preposition, ek, he went out of the city. He is going from within the city to go outside the city. And so that's a depicting of this. Sometimes your prepositions will answer some problems. And you see they've used different prepositions, and the English text may have the same translation, which is a bit confusing. Okay. Okay. There was an instance where blind men were healed going into Jericho, in Jericho. And if you look at your preposition, you can see that I believe there was one man healed when he entered Jericho, and another one entered when he was leaving Jericho. One, maybe two entered healed when it was blindness when he left Jericho. But apo is always used with the ablative case. It means from. In Acts 2, 17 and 18, I will pour out of my spirit upon all flesh. The word of is apo. I will pour out from my spirit. It doesn't say the spirit was being poured out. It says something was coming from the spirit. It's ablative case there. And it has apo. Now, dia can take two. It can go with the genitive or the accusative. And it means two. And you think of dissect something, being cut it into two parts. And so dia is through. We'll have a diagram that'll show this in just a minute. It's with the genitive, it means through, but with the accusative case, it changes meaning. and it means on account of or because of. So we'll see the are being used in that way. Ace, this is a very important word. I think it's found more than 500 times in the New Testament, but he lists 200 to 500 times each within. And ace is more unto or toward. And it can even go into, but generally it's pointing up to something. And it only goes with the accusative case. And that's for remission of sins in the King James Version, for. Ek, and our word exit comes out of this, English word exit. And ek, we use ek in several other words, and some of these words you'll see them used in medical terminology. There's a lot of Greek words used in medical terminology. I taught medical physics, and I taught courses, prep courses for people to take the medical school entrance exam. I taught the physics and mathematics and graphing to them for 8 years. Well, I graduated at Oklahoma State University, but I taught at Oklahoma University. It was a dirty job, but somebody had to do it. They were really good students, so I'm just kidding. They were good students, and I liked them very much. But some of them were actually had gotten some Greek books that were designed to teach people to go in the medical field, so they could learn Greek words and they could figure out what the words were. Cardia is heart, and derma is skin, and so forth. Epidermis, epi is upon. So the epidermis is the upon skin. Ek, and so we have exoskeleton is outside. So that would be an animal that has its skeleton outside its body, outside the rest of the body. Some animals do. So ek, and it becomes X. So epsilon kappa becomes on kasi out there, vowel. And so it becomes X before a vowel. It means out of, it's only used with the ablative. It's out of something, from within it, see, out of it. If you exited the city, you were inside the city and left it. If you use apo, you'd be going from the edge of the city to leave it. A little subtle difference in it, but the difference is there. Now, in this word, I think, spelled like 1,200 times, maybe more in the New Testament. So once you learn these prepositions, you got maybe 500 or 600 passages, places, at least sometimes some more, some of these more than that, where these words are found. That's within. It's used with the locative case, in or by, but it's also used in the sense of by. And he doesn't tell you this, but you might put a note on this, that when it uses it in the sense of by, he's saying it's instrumental case. So in can be used with the locative or the instrumental. Other scholars will tell you it's also used with the instrumental. King James frequently translates it by instead of in. And I believe they're correct in their translation. Epi. And we have a lot of English words, epistemology and so forth. Epigram, and gram is to write. Epigram. Epilogue, that's a saying, you kind of put it upon it. And it means upon. It's used with the genitive, over, upon, at the time of. With the locative, it's used at or on the basis of, and with the accusative, it's on or to or against. Again, these are be very helpful to you. Always know what case it's used with so you know how it's being used. So this is very important. We're going to spend some time on this, maybe 2 or 3 weeks. But it's very important. This is very helpful to you. Any questions so far? Kata, and that's down. And what we have is kata has become been used in some English words as well. But it's down with the genitive, it means against. With the ablative, it means down from. And so it can be used with either genitive or ablative. But the accusative is down along, or it could be used in a distributive sense. From every week, every first day of the week, the disciples broke bread. And so we find them, this is in 1 Corinthians 16, 1 and 2, when they come together. Upon the first day of the week, they laid by in store. And it's actually upon every first day of the week. Some modern translations actually translate it better than the King James and American Standard do there. Yeah. And again, metathesis is an English word. Meta, M-E-T-A, is a prefix. And get you an English dictionary like Merriam-Webster's Collegiate Dictionary. You can type Merriam-Webster's Collegiate Dictionary on the internet, Google it, and find it, and not have to buy it. But it's available. And I'll tell you, it's very useful. And you can look at all the words that have meta, M-E-T-A, as a prefix. And that'll give you a key to the meaning of those words. Learning these prepositions, you'll learn a lot of English, okay? But it's in the midst of, with the genitive, and it's with the accusative. With the accusative, it's after. Genitive is with, and with the accusative, it's after, okay? After so many days. Peri, our word perimeter, to measurement around something. Pericardium, it's something that surrounds the heart. Periphrastic, that means you phrase yourself and talk all around the matter, but maybe you don't clearly articulate yourself. Periphrastic. So peri is used quite a lot, but it's around, A-R-O-U-N-D. With the genitive case, it's about or concerning. I've been talking about or around this matter, and we can say he's been talking all around the matter, or we can say, but the accusative just means around. Okay. Notice your cases. Cross, near. It's only used with the accusative, to order with. Now we have the next one, we have hupo. We have hypo, and it can be transliterated as H-Y-P-O. Notice the rough reading, H-Y-P-O, or H-U-P-O. And what we have here is hypodermic, hypodermic. Hypo is under. Derma is skin, so it's under the skin. So a hypodermic needle goes under the skin. So that's two Greek words put together, and you learn them and you kind of figure out what they're talking about. Hypothyroidism. Hypo is your thyroid is not functioning very well, and you're not getting enough of the things that it produces, hormones. Hooper is another one, and that's over, that's more. So hooper, and we get our English prefix hyper, H-Y-P-E-R, from that. We don't have hooper up here on this right here, but it is a preposition. Para, again, we saw it earlier, beside. That's by the side of. It's with the ablative, from the side of. At the side of with the locative, and to the side of with the accusative. And again, subtle differences in those three different cases. Any questions so far? All right. Come. Come. Now, what part of speech is come? Help me, somebody. Just kind of help me out here. Well, okay, let's look down. Here's come. All over. My come. Now notice it has an ace ending, eta sigma. That looks like the genitive case. Okay, nouns are given in the nominative case form. There's your nominative case form, come. and then the genitive ending is given, you take this eta, this last eta, make it an eta sigma, and that becomes genitive case. Come is a nominative case, singular, nominative, singular. And make it into an eta sigma, you have genitive, singular. And then, of course, the eta with the rough breathing, that's your article, nominative, singular article. And that's village. Any question? So we know it's a noun. Are there questions? Okay. Now then, let's look at this chart. We'll spend the rest of the time with this chart here. This chart kind of lays it all out for you. Now, in the original book, the chart was a circle instead of an ellipse. But when I couldn't get it to come out, so I reproduced it as an ellipse. Still actually works the same way. So we have, let's take our top one up here, hooper, and hooper, notice the rough breathing on it. Let me highlight it a bit. It's hard to highlight this because this is a file here. Just kind of move my mouse around under it. Hooper, with the ablative and accusative means over or above. Hyperactive, he's just more active than most other people. So hyperthyroid, his thyroid is just too active, and he'll be slender, real slender. I knew a man that had hyperthyroidism, and he got after people for being overweight. Well, he didn't have a problem. He had a problem being underweight. He just was always going. Okay, so that's hyper or hooper. And that's over or above. Ana. We had it just a moment ago. That's up. That's up, going up. And so it only leaves with the accusative case. Epi, notice it's touching the circle or the ellipse. So it is in contact with it. So it's upon, but it's in contact with it. Like your epidermis is your upon skin, your skin upon. You have an endoderm, which is a skin that's under the epidermis. So you have an epidermis and an endoderm.
Brother, real quick.
Yes.
On hooper, I didn't see that on the list on the vocabulary.
It wasn't.
The ablative then is over and the accusative is above. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Sorry. Thank you.
Okay. Now, this diagram of local or place use of Greek prepositions. In, and so notice it's inside the circle. Think of this as a circle because it originally was. When I got to drawing it, I couldn't get the stuff in there on the chart. So I've got a chart for this. If you want it, I can send you the chart. It's just a PDF file, I think. Okay. I think it may be a GIF file, GIF. I think it's PDF. Okay. It may be a GIF file. I'll look at it and see. It doesn't matter. If you want it, I'll send it to you. But in, that's a locative or an instrumental. Notice he tells you it's locative and instrumental, both. Used in both cases. Right? Peri, notice that's the perimeter. Perimeter is the measurement around something. Metron is to measure, and peri is around. So perimeter is to measure around something. Okay, so peri is around. And there's a pericardium, that's a sac that's around your heart. And so that's pericardium. Cardia is heart in Greek. Pros or pros, toward, accusative and locative, toward. Now, meta is out here, meta. And that's genitive and accusative case. So it's out here. And then we have ace going toward it or even into it. Okay. Unto remission of sins, it's pointing toward with a view to remission of sins, Acts 2:38. But it doesn't guarantee you got there. Now, if you claim it does, you got problems. Let me illustrate where you got a problem. the same preposition is used in Romans 10, verses 9 and 10. The New International Version grossly mistranslates those two verses. It's a real bad translation. And I would, if you have access to one, I'd advise you to look at it and see how it translates. Okay. We can talk about that at a later time if you wish, but I don't want to do it right now, but you can study it on your own a bit. Ek, over here, ek, we had it a moment ago. Ek is out of, see, so from inside the circle to the outside, coming within it, from within to coming out. Okay. Apo is from the edge of the circle. This apo probably should be right up here in the diagram, but I didn't have room for it. When I set it up, I messed it up a bit. So it actually comes from the edge of the circle. Para is beside the circle, and it can have contact with it, ablative or locative. Hupo, notice the rough-readed hupo, accusative and ablative, and that's under, but it's not necessarily making contact with it. Kata is down from it, not down from within it, but down from it. Okay. If it were from within, it would be ak. So see the subtle differences? This is from the edge of it. Kata is, and apo or ak is from the within it, and kata would be down from it. Apo would be away from it, and apo could function anywhere, including down. Okay. But usually, if they're going to go down, they'll use hupo or kata. And down would be normally would be kata. All right. Any questions? The Holy Spirit chose the words in the Bible, so he chose them to have a certain meaning. We're pretty close to the end of the material now, and the time rather. I'm sorry, in our time. We've got about one or 2 minutes. So are there questions before I want to go with section 32 next time.
We've got up and down. What about like left and right?
Well, your prepositions, Matar could be either left or right, or I could too. They would have another word describing it. That's again my memory. Okay. Rather than just left, right. There are words for left and right though, and I'd have to think about it. I'm not sure whether they're adverbs or prepositions, but the function of adverbs and prepositions just overlaps so much. Sometimes they're almost the same parts of speech. So left and right. These are just the common prepositions. There's a whole bunch of prepositions in the New Testament. Okay. I have a file which I'll send you. Try to remember to send it the next day or two on prepositions, and it lists a whole bunch of prepositions and how they're used. And it has all of these plus a bunch more. Sometimes some of those prepositions are only found once or twice in the New Testament. That's why we're not studying them here. Okay. So there are other prepositions carrying different meanings or subtleties of meanings. Any other questions? Fine. No questions then? What I want you to do is go back through this material and see if you have any questions about it. And what we'll do is we'll start with section 32 unless there are questions about what we covered tonight. All right? Okay. And I'm going to end the class now.